Miles Davis, one of the most influential and prominent musical minds of the 20th century. He crossed musical boundaries and unfailingly evolved with the times. We're here to talk about his style, life, and influences. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to have Miles Davis here with us tonight. So Miles, how did you get into music as a youngster?
I grew up in East St. Louis, and I kind of consider that a conservatory because there was so many great musicians that came through there, so many trumpet players like Clark Terry, and but I really listened to this radio show called the Harlem Beat. I heard it for 15 minutes and I said, that's what I want to sound like. So my father brought me this trumpet when I was 13, and I really enjoyed listening to Clark Terry and Dizzy Gillespie. And one time, Bill Eckstein and Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie came to St. Louis.
Could you tell us about your relationship with Miles Davis?
When the Bill Eckstein band visited East St. Louis, Miles was brought on as a third trumpet when Buddy Anderson was out sick. After that, we parted ways. And when he came back to Juilliard to study, he found me again, and we did a lot of music in Harlem's nightclubs, a lot of jam sessions, had a lot of fun with bebop. Now, Miles was a great contributor, but he was mainly a sideman. He got to be a leader occasionally as a member of my Charlie Parker quintet, with Max Roach, Al Haig, and Curly Russell.
So tell me about your experiences in New York and Juilliard.
New York, my father thought I was studying classical music in Juilliard, but whenever I got the chance, I would go down to 42nd Street and play jam sessions with Charlie Parker, and we did a lot of work together, and I dropped out of school.
Around 1945, Dizzy Gillespie and I parted, and Davis replaced him. We often went into the studio, and Miles began to show his signature, cooler style. We did a lot of touring, but I had a little episode. People called it a full-on mental breakdown, but well, whatever. Anyways, I returned in 1948, and Miles rejoined us.
We did, some more playing together and some more touring. But after a while, we kind of had our differences.
So how did you come to cool jazz? How did you meet some musicians that contributed to this music between the 40s and the 60s?
Well, before that, there was bebop, and that was the music of that time, and a lot of cats. It was a lot of notes, and a lot of shapes, and a lot of complex harmonies and things of that nature. But as you know, that was a reflection of the time period, of that culture at that time, and it started to calm down. So I think the music started to calm down as well.
I had just moved from Hollywood into New York, and I'd come from the arranging scene with the Thornhill Band, and I was trying out different instrumental colors and different arranging possibilities. So a lot of the guys like Miles, Jerry Mulligan, and John Lewis, they would come down to my place in the city, and we would start getting into these different styles and exploring different things. We had small recording sessions with a nonette, and we tried to incorporate different instruments like tuba, baritone sax, and French horn. And it was really great because we got all this classical influence and this Spanish influence that really helped shape the music. And eventually all these recordings came to be the birth of the cool. And great tunes on that album, Baplicity and Giroux. So I was working with Miles on these arrangements, and I made sure that he got all the space that he needed, but I had a lot of colors and harmonies that he really liked. So, Mr. Coltrane, could you tell us about your experiences with Miles Davis?
I played with Miles for a long time. I first joined up with him in '55 on Prestige Records. We recorded Workin', Cookin', Steamin', and Relaxin', to name a few. I guess you could call it cool jazz. After I joined Miles then, I found he doesn't talk much and will rarely discuss his music. He's completely unpredictable. Sometimes he'd walk off stage after playing just a few notes, not even completing one chorus. If I asked him something about his own music, I never knew how he was going to take it.
And you continued to work with him after that?
Well, he let me go right after we finished up with Round About Midnight. I was having some personal issues that were getting in the way of the music. About a year and a half later, I'd cleaned up, we'd recorded milestones, and things were back on track.
And what about Kind of Blue?
That's where we really stuck to the modal approach. Miles had been getting into that on Jazz Track just a little while before, but he devoted this whole album to the concept. It was spontaneous, unrehearsed, really rewarding experience. my years with Miles were some of my best.
Can you tell us about the difference in style between you and John Coltrane?
Can you turn your head to the left a little bit? Down. Yeah. Coltrane's a great saxophone player. One of the fastest and loudest cats I've ever heard pick up a horn. And the guy's dangerous, but you know his style, it contrasted and complemented mine at the same time. You know, like on the Kind of Blue album, his style was, you know, it was very, very fast, very complex, very rhythmical, and I like to take more of a melodic approach. So that's why our playing kind of went in and out of each other sometimes.
So tell us how you first got involved with Miles Davis.
Well, my first album, Taken Off, got the attention of Miles in '62, and I had a friend, Tony Williams, who was playing drums, and he had just joined Miles' new quintet that he was putting together then. Tony knew Miles had checked out some of my stuff, and he hooked us up. Tony was just 17, but Miles wanted a fresher, younger-sounding quintet, and he asked me to join as well. It was us and Ron Carter in the rhythm section. Man, what a group.
So, what was it like working with Miles?
Miles was really intense. He demanded nothing but the best from the groups. He didn't say that much, but he commanded our respect all the time. When I met him, Miles knew that jazz was kind of losing popularity as more and more of the younger people at the time got into rock.
Did Miles like rock?
Oh, yeah, Miles really dug a lot of those groups out there in the 60s, and he used a lot of the elements of rock in his own music over the next few decades, especially when he started experimenting with electric music.
Interesting. So what albums are you most proud of during your time with Miles?
That's a tough pick. We really had something special going with that group. I guess my favorite albums are ESP, Miles Smiles, and Nefertiti. On those albums, Miles really pushed the idiom into completely new territory. He also started composing a lot more during this time.
After working with your quintet in the 60s, you entered your electric period and experimented with rock jazz fusion, such as your well-known album, Bitches Brew. What was going on during this period? What influenced you? And can you describe the music a little bit more?
Well, during that time period, that was, different people started to come out. James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, Hendrix, and they were introducing electricity, So I said I wanted to experiment with that. I wanted to get into electricity because I keep moving. I like for the music to keep moving. So, we just put the whole thing together and we wanted to fuse, jazz, we wanted to fuse with rock and funk and, whatever. So, we had different opportunities to do certain venues, the Isle of Wight Festival, and they asked me, what is this? They said, what is this, Miles? Because, we can't really put a name to it. So I just said, call it anything.
How did you come into contact with Miles?
Well, I was playing at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club opening for Bill Evans in '68, and unbeknownst to me, Miles Davis and Philly Joe were in the audience. Philly approached me afterwards and told me Miles really dug my playing and he wanted me in his group. A few weeks later, Miles booked me at Basie's nightclub in New York, and I flew out. That's when it all started.
And what was the extent of your career with Miles?
Well, we only played together for 2 years, but a lot happened in those years. We recorded Bitches Brew and In a Silent Way in 1970, which would come to define this new era of jazz fusion. I came into his group as mostly an upright player, but by the end it was all electric bass. It was an interesting transition for me.
Music is a beautiful thing. It's like art. Yeah. It's a masterpiece. In my own right.
Miles Davis, one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century.
Man, musician.
His musical stylings have influenced generation after generation of musicians to come. Truly, he is a man and a legend.